Those lyrics. 277. And before they play this, let me give you just a little bit of background about this song that is probably new to most of us. It's called O Thou in Whose Presence. And if you look on the left side there at the top, you'll see the name Joseph Swain. That's the author of the lyrics. And then over to the right, Freeman Lewis, who wrote the tune. But Joseph Swain was an English Baptist pastor. And you look at the dates there next to his name, 1791 to 1796. Which of you kids that are quick with math can tell us how long he lived?
5 years.
What? 5 years?
This is 1791.
1761 to 1796. He wasn't 5 years old when he died. How old was he when he died? 35 years old. And he was able to, within 35 years, learn to create beautiful poetry. He was also an artist. He made engravings to illustrate books, because back then you couldn't take a picture and print it in a book. So he illustrated engravings. And he based this song on Song of Solomon, and he built the idea about the believer's relationship with Christ. And if you look at Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5, in the voice of the bride, Solomon writes, "Tell me, O thou whom my soul loveth, where thou feedest, where thou makest thy flock to rest at noon." And the author here, Joseph Swain, applied that to the believer longing for fellowship with Christ. And that's what this song is about. O thou in whose presence. So let's listen to the musicians play through the first verse, and then let's sing all five. Several times through this afternoon, and that's the same tune that I heard, but I'm realizing that I'm not as familiar with it as I want to be. So play through it one more time before we try to sing it together. Can't see it, but it's real, and it shows up in words and in actions. But you can't see it because it's an invisible thing. And the subject tonight is about that. And you can tell when an employee doesn't like his job. You can tell if he does. You can tell if someone is interested in the Bible or not. You can tell if someone is curious, if someone is thoughtless, someone doesn't care. You can tell. You can tell by what they say and what they do. But the thing, the subject tonight is invisible. You can't really see it. You can't put your finger on it. But really, you can know if somebody is doing something or feeling something. And so you can tell if a person does like you or doesn't like you. You can tell. Every football team in the NFL, they have what they call a practice squad. Sometimes it's called a taxi squad. The offense and defense, they have to practice during the week for the game. They have to practice against players on their own team. It's called the practice squad. So the first string practices against the practice squad. The practice squad, if they're on the defense, so the offense can run their plays. The defense runs defensive schemes that the other team that they're going to play the coming week run. And so the offensive team plays against them. That's the practice squad. And it's also they play offense against the first team defense. So that's how the offensive, defensive things work out in the professional leagues, NFL. Now, sometimes a player on a practice squad is so good, it gets the coach's attention. Now, the player that tries real hard to break from the practice squad to maybe third string, second string, even play a game, he doesn't advertise, "Coach, put me in the game." He doesn't say, "Coach, I want to play." He doesn't hold signs up. He doesn't have family members come to the practice field and hold up banners and say, "Play my son," or "Play my cousin," or "Play my nephew." He doesn't do that. All he does is go out to the practice field and he plays very hard to the best that he can, and he hopes by playing very hard and doing things well, he hopes to get the attention of the coaches. And sometimes a player who's not a starter actually gets into a game. And by the way, when a team plays on an away game, not all the players on the team goes to the game. Sometimes they have them stay back. The practice squad stays back home. They don't go. But if you go to an away game, it's with the hope that you might play in the game. So the practice squad player doesn't try to get attention, but he gets attention by what he does more than what he says. And the coaches say, hey, look at number 55 over there. Who is that guy? The coaches may never even know who the practice players are. They're so busy with the first string people. And they'll say, I don't know, let me look at the roster coach. That's Joe Hamburger, Joe Bologna, or that's Mr. Bobby Kimono or something. Really? He's in the practice squad? Man, he can run. And the day goes on in practice, and then they say, you know, we should really think about putting this guy Bobby on the practice squad to play on the second or third string. He's got potential. Now, what are they seeing in this practice player? What cannot be seen, but it can be seen in words and action. Here's the word for tonight. Starts with an A. Now, I'll just give it to you. A-T-T-I, attitude. That is what is seen, but the attitude itself is not seen. But the working out of someone's attitude is seen by what they say or don't say, and by what they do or don't do. You ever see people who work for the state government on a road crew? Now here's what they do. There's 10 people around while 3 people are working in the manhole. There's a canopy, and one guy's holding up a little stick, one guy's holding up a shovel, the other guy's holding up a rake, and they're just like that, you know, and they're just hanging around. You look at them and you think, wow, they're getting paid good pay for standing around, leaning against a rake or a hoe or shovel. And they just look real relaxed, real casual like that. And you think, wow, they really are just there. But when you see someone really working, you say, well, that guy really wants to do a good job. He really wants to get the job done. He's really, really zealous. And you see the attitude in both kinds of people. Just like with the Sports Illustration, attitude is seen in the performance or by the words that people use. And attitude is not hidden. You cannot avoid not seeing attitude by action or by words. We all meet people that we don't know. We all meet people, run into people that we do know casually. Then we know people that are friends and acquaintances. We know people from church, and we all have different attitudes about us. Attitudes are impossible to hide. Attitudes are going to show up. It'll be seen in what we say, what we don't say, what we do, what we don't do. So attitude is seen by performance. Now, let's look at this. Our attitude when confronting present danger. Our attitude comes out when confronting present danger. I have 2 points tonight. The first one is attitude shows up. It's seen when confronting present danger. 2 Old Testament references. Turn to Numbers chapter 13. Attitude is seen in this chapter very clearly. Numbers chapter 13. It's a famous chapter. God promised the land to Israel. They would get the land, they would inherit the land. The inhabitants would have to be conquered. They'd have to do their work. God would give them victory if they just would obey Him. They are at Kadesh Barnea, at the border of Canaan. They have been, oh, what an experience they've had for 40 years. They send out 12 spies into the land. They would spend 40 days in the land, and they had a mission to accomplish. They were to find out about the people of the land, about the housing, the building, the structures, if the cities have high walls, or are they living in tents. They will find out if the ground, the soil is fruitful to produce, to grow things. They would have to find out all these things. So they'll take 40 days to check out the land, as we would say, to spy out the land. They would go without being noticed. They would go covertly. They would go undercover. They'd move about in the daytime very carefully, and at night they'd move about too. They'd have to be not noticed in this land. And so that was their mission. In Numbers 13, verse 25, they return after 40 days with the report. They spent a month and 10 days going over the land, walking, checking out trees, checking out the forest, if the forests are, all these things. And they come up with a big report. And here's what the report says, verse number 13:25. And they returned from searching out the land after 40 days. Verse 26. And they went and came to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them and unto the congregation, all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told them and said, we came in unto the land whither thou sentest us. In other words, they're saying, we did what you said, Moses. We were obedient. We did our job. We fulfilled the mission. And surely it floweth with milk and honey. Now that's good. They said the land is a good land for growing, for production. It's a good land. We get in there, Moses, we're going to be able to grow all kinds of good things for our food and for everything else. It's the land that flows with milk and honey, and this is the fruit thereof, or fruit of it. They brought back some evidence. They brought back some grapes from Eshcol, and the grapes were huge. The grapes were bigger than normal grapes. On Sunday we had some grapes from Costco. They were green grapes, big. And the thing about the grapes that was good is that they were firm. They weren't mushy. Grapes are good when they're firm, but they're mushy, not worth anything. Now the grapes that they brought back were different. The grapes were like this. Big as this, round as that. Big grapes. I like the grapes size to tennis balls and even perhaps bowling balls. That's huge. That's big grapes. And so they brought this back, 2 minutes to carry it on a stave, because that's how heavy it was. And can you imagine how excited the people were to see the fruit of the land? They said, oh, and they just went, can you imagine what we can do in the land? Over at the Burleys in Alaska, in wherever they live, Fairbanks, she wanted to show us her garden. I've seen pictures of her garden, and I saw it in person. She was so proud to show us the garden. She had tomatoes, big tomatoes. She had cabbage. She had lettuce. She had, I think you sat on a cabbage here, didn't you? It was like a big one like that. It was huge. Never saw it so big like that in her garden. Now, can you imagine what they saw when they brought back these grapes? And can you imagine how excited they became to think of what they could grow in the land? It's a land that flows with milk and honey. It's going to produce. We don't have to use pesticides. We don't have to use all these chemicals. It's going to be totally the first ever land that they can grow things without any chemicals. It'll be the first country that is really organic. And they sell all their things to Whole Foods and everybody else too for double the price. And so they came back with that report. They're all excited about that. However, look at verse number 28. The word here is very important. Nevertheless. Now look at the board. Here's another word for nevertheless. It's but. The land is a land of milk and honey, but. Whenever you see the word but, there's a big change of thought. There's a big change in direction of what they're saying. There's a big shift from positive optimism to doom and gloom. The land in verse 27, it flows with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. However, nevertheless, but the people, they were to look at the people and see what they're like. The people are strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled, very great. And more we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. Watch carefully the wording here about the description of where these giants were and the people, what they're like and where they're from. They're from the south. The Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains. You have the south, you have mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. They are everywhere, these people. These mean, ugly, smelly, foul, big people, giant people, pagan people. They are everywhere. Verse 30. Skip verse 30, I'll come back to verse 30. 31. But the men that went up with him said,
We be not able, the men that, these are the 10. Only 2 men came back with an optimistic, positive report, Caleb and Joshua, Joshua and Caleb. But the men that went up with him said, we be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. Now we have an objection here. We have an attitude. We have an attitude. These 10 had an attitude. Verse 32. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, and so on. Skip down to the end of this verse, verse number 32. And all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And there we saw giants, the sons of Anak, which came of the giants. And we went in our own sight as grasshoppers. We were in our own sight as grasshoppers. Now, you have the words we saw about 3 times given. We saw, we saw. They're saying, just like John said in John's gospel, in John's epistles, 1 John and 2 John, just like that, the wording of 1 John, that they saw Jesus, the word of life, and they handled him. They're saying we had a first-hand experience with Jesus, the Lord of glory. He came down, his incarnation. The same way that John explained that about seeing Jesus Christ firsthand, they're saying, we saw these giants firsthand. We ourselves saw these giants. We're not making this up. It wasn't that what somebody else said. We saw with our own earballs these giants. We saw them. We saw how they walked. We saw how they threw spears, and we saw how they used. We saw them how they wielded their sword. We saw these giants ourselves. They're saying we're not making this up. In other words, they're telling the people, telling Moses, we're not telling stories. We're not hallucinating. We haven't been smoking crack. We haven't been doing marijuana. We are sane people. We saw with our own eyes for a month plus these giants. We cannot take this land. That's what they're saying. We're telling you the truth is what they're saying. So even though the land's a good land, the giants are there, and the people live in walled cities. We can't break these walled cities down. We don't have the technology. We don't have the equipment. We don't have the John Deere tractors and bulldozers. We can't do all these things. We can't go and conquer this land. It's not possible, is what they're saying. They had an attitude. They had a defeated attitude. And I'll tell you why in just a second. We saw, we saw, we saw. The fact is, we can't take the land. The fact is, we can't do this. The fact is, we cannot go in, Moses. It's suicide. That's what they're telling. The 10 said this. We've been unable to go up. Now, they were saying Eddie would not go. The other 2 said Eddie would go, but they're saying Eddie would not go. You need to ask about that phrase, Eddie would not go, or Eddie would go. Joshua and Caleb were the only 2 of the 10, as you remember, that said, we can do it. Now, turn to Joshua 14. Joshua chapter 14. We'll see these 2 men that said we can. It can be done, and I'll tell you why. We'll see why they were optimistic and not pessimistic. Joshua 14, verse number 8. Now, Joshua goes in the land, he leads the people, and he divides up the land for inheritances. And Caleb, he's 80 years old, but his fit as a fiddle. It's as if he's 25. He does Tai Chi, he does calisthenics, he does all this isometric stuff. That guy's in shape. Okay, you get the picture, right? He didn't do this thing, but I'm saying he was in shape. He was a young man, though he's an old man. Look at verse number 10. 14, verse number 8. Nevertheless, my brethren that went up with me, the 10 spies, made the heart of the people melt. This is what happens when there's a negative attitude. It influences other people. It influenced the whole nation. The whole nation was optimistic. They were excited about what they saw, the fruit of the land, and all of a sudden their balloon blew up. It exploded. Oh yeah, these giants. We can't do it because of these giants, and they were just discouraged, and they were just so defeated because of the negative attitude that the 10 had. This is what Caleb is saying. But I, Caleb, wholly followed the Lord my God. The difference between the 10 spies and Joshua and Caleb, and remember Joshua, he lived in Egypt. He witnessed all that Moses had done, what God had done through Moses, the deliverance from Egypt, and going through the Red Sea. Joshua experienced all of that. Both men had reason to be optimistic in their attitude because they had a history of what God has done. And they could tell, you know, if God did that before, he can do it again. And since he promised us we'll get the land, that must mean he will use us to defeat the enemy in the land. So they were optimistic. Their attitude was like that. They were not pessimistic. They had reason to be optimistic. Sometimes you can be very optimistic in your mind and imagine everything that's current fine, que sera, sera, whatever will be kind of attitude, but it's not based on reality. It's not based on the, quote, God factor. The God factor. They had a reason to be optimistic and not pessimistic. The 10 spies saw the giants and then they saw themselves. They compared themselves to what a giant looks like. Now watch this. You see this here? I got a tape measure. We don't know how tall the giants were, but they were sons of Enoch and they were related somehow to, what's his name? That other giant. I'll get to him in just a little bit. But let's see here. Oh, okay. 7 feet is almost, let's see. Okay, that is 99 inches. Oh, let's see. Oh, wow. You know what? Let me try to get 9 feet up here. That is 9 feet to the ceiling. Now, if giants were like Goliath, they think Goliath was 9 feet. That's a pretty big guy to fight. No wonder they were scared. No wonder they were scared. Now, the heroes were not pygmies, or many hoonies, but they were 9 feet tall, or 10 feet, 8 feet. No, so they were terrified at the sights of what they saw. Pretty understandable. But the problem that they had that created in them a negative attitude was they were facing flesh with flesh. They were leaning on the arm of their flesh. They were looking at their ability, their size, their skill against the giants of the land. So they were comparing body to body. And body to body, in that comparison, you're going to get terrified. You ever see these? Hulk Hogan died. But Hulk Hogan, in his latter years, became conservative. Maybe he became a Christian. I think he got baptized. I don't know. But maybe, hopefully, he was saved. But Hulk Hogan, he used to rip off his shirt. Remember that? And he was a big, big dude. And he was intimidating. And that was all part of the shtick that he had. Very much pulled in the ticket holders. And people, promoters like that. Well, if you were to face him, would you be scared? Of course you would be. Because you're just not like that. Not many people are. And so those giants terrified the Hebrews because they were trusting their flesh and not trusting in God. I mean, they had a reason to trust in God because of the history of God being faithful and powerful on their behalf. Yet they forgot about that and just leaned upon their own selves and their own strength. That's why they were negative in their attitude. And unfortunately, it affected the whole nation because of that. Just 2 men had a positive attitude, not because they were positive, not because they were just happy, 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 and just smile and your day will be nice, and just smile and there'll be sunshine, just think positively. No, it was not at all. It was they had a history, they had an experience with God, and they knew that God would keep his promises, and God would defend them, and God would give them the victory. And that's why they were optimistic, Caleb and Joshua. Attitude, attitude, attitude. Obstacles, when they faced obstacles, their attitude showed what they believed and what they were depending upon. The attitude of the spies and of the nation was, we can't do it because it's us against them. We can't do it. They were afraid. And then the other 2, of course, were just the opposite. They saw the same obstacles, but they relied on the Lord's promises, and they were victorious, and they went into the land. Now, come over to 1 Samuel, chapter 17 in just a minute. Can't spend much time here because you know the story, you know the outcome, but something to point out in 1 Samuel chapter 17. Talking about giants, we talk about Goliath, and we talk about another main character of this chapter. It's about David, a shepherd boy. Not sure if he was a teenager, but maybe he was. He was not an adult, and he was not a professional soldier, a professional warrior. He had gone for a Seabees not sea-based, but SEAL training. But he knew how to use weapons, a sling. He knew how to fight. He knew how to use a club. He knew how to use tools to defend himself and his sheep. So he was skilled in some things to protect his sheep and for his trade. 1 Samuel 17, the giant comes through. We know the story, into the valley. The Hebrew soldiers, the king Saul himself was afraid of the giant for 40 days. 40 is the number of testing and trials. For 40 days, no one took up the giant's challenge. Send a man to fight against me, and whoever wins, our whole country, our armies will be subservient to the ones who win. So we arm wrestle, and if I win, why would everybody else want to have to arm wrestle? Just me and your best man, and if I win, you are our slaves, and vice versa. That's what the deal was. Did anybody go out there and challenge the Goliath? No, he was a big guy, perhaps 9 feet tall. And his armor, say, weighed 125 pounds. That's a lot of weight for armor. Helmet, breastplate, thighs, covering your shins, on your arms. 125 pounds. That's pretty heavy. Must be a pretty big guy to be able to handle that thing and move about. So he came down and he's spewing out all kind of hate towards the Hebrew God, and he's mocking God. And you know the story how David came down with Jesus to get his brothers, and he says, "What's going on? What's all there? Why is everybody hiding in the trenches? And why is the ground shaking? What is that a smell?" Down there from the giant coming down, and he hears him holler out the challenge, and nobody takes him up on that. And then David says these famous words, verse number 29, 17:29. Is there not a cause? Well, there was a cause. God's name was being blasphemed, but no man dared to stand up and honor God's name and protect his name from being defamed. Now, David says in verse number 32, David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him." Now this is odd for David to say that, because he's not a soldier, he's not an officer, he's just a shepherd boy. And he's telling the king, let no man be afraid. Let no man's heart fail. Let no man have a heart attack. Just kind of calm down, everyone. And let's think this through and think about it in the right way, in the right perspective. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Can you imagine how he must have been treated as like a very arrogant, cocky kid? Who do you think you are? You're going to fight. Look, we are. You see how that played out. And verse number 33 says, "And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth." 34. Now here's the attitude of David. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep. Now he's about to go into his history, his personal experiences of what God did for him. Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear. Two terrifying predators. One's a big cat, the other one's a big bear. Both of them are not fun to run into in a dark alley if they're hungry. By the way, I saw a video of a bear carrying a little cub in his mouth very gently to a car of tourists. The window was down, and placed the cub in the car and walked away. There's another one in Africa. A lion had a cub coming up to an open cabin, jeep. They're all terrified. They freeze. This lion comes up with the cub in his mouth and puts it gently on the lap of this woman, and he goes away. Now what's that all about? Who knows? Who knows what that's about? But normally that's a terrifying experience. David says in his life, in his experience, in his history, there's a bear and a lion. I confronted and took the lamb out of the flock, and I went out after him and smote him. David goes after the lion that killed a lamb. He's mad. And he shows here that he's a man in his heart. You're not going to take one of my lambs. These are my lambs. This is my flock. I care for my sheep and I protect them. And I'm going to get you for getting one of mine. And I went out after him, verse 35, and smote him and delivered it out of his mouth. Well, you notice that David himself said that I did it, but watch carefully. And when he rose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them. Oh boy, can you see his attitude? Can you see David's attitude and how brave he was? He wasn't cocky, arrogant. He wasn't self-centered. He wasn't like that at all. He was just saying, I know how to fight with my hands because of this and this. Not only that, too, God is the one who taught my hands how to war, and I'm going to fight, do my part, and God's going to do his part. No matter how big this giant is, 9 feet, 10 feet, 50, no matter how big he is, he could be a 7'4" basketball player for the San Antonio Spurs. Skinny as a stick, a praying mantis, but this guy, I mean, I don't care how big he is. God's on my side, and I'm going to fight him, and I will kill him as one of these lions, as a lion and a bear. Verse 37. David said, moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion, out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of the fish. Now, what's the difference here between the attitudes of David, Joshua, Caleb, and the 10 spies, and the Hebrew military? What's the difference? It's a simple difference, but it's a big difference that formed the attitude of David, Caleb, and Joshua, the 10 spies, and the army of Israel. What's the big difference here? Well, I think you know. It's that most of them are trusting the arm of their flesh. Well, these three, the minority, these three were trusting in God while they were being responsible to use the skills that they learned and use the experience that they have gained in combat. So their confidence was not in themselves. Their confidence was really in what God has done for them before, and he would do it again for us because he said he will deliver me out of the hand of the Philistine. Well, it was a compelling closing argument because Saul says unto David, verse 37, go. He won the case. Go, and the Lord be with thee. It's pretty comical. A courtroom drama. A courtroom drama. And you know the rest of the story. Well, attitude, it's invisible, but it is seen in words and in action. I hope you see the same thing. David had an attitude, the others had an attitude. When they faced obstacles and challenges, the ones who had God on their side and believed that God was going to be faithful, they're the ones who were optimistic. They were not pessimistic. They're the ones who said, we can do it, even though it's a real big challenge. We can do it because God's on our side. He will keep his promises to us. Their confidence was in God. That's the big difference. You can make an application for life today. Now in Acts chapter 16, you don't have to turn it, but write it down. Acts 16:25. Paul and Silas, you remember, they were facing a real hardship situation. They were thrown in jail, in prison, for preaching and for disobeying religious people. And the religious people, they created some story about these preachers, Paul and Silas, and said, they are breaking our law. You got to put them in jail, otherwise people will break the law too. Kind of made up, trumped up, no pun intended, trumped up charges. And so they're in jail. They got beaten. They got whipped. They're in prison. They've been there all day. They're chained together. Their legs are chained at the ankles. They're sitting down. It's not really comfortable. How could it be? And they're bleeding, and blood is driving their back, sticking to whatever clothes shirt they have on, leaning against a cold wall. And then at midnight, they probably were singing before, praying before, but they were found to be praying and singing. Now, what kind of attitude did they have? This is incredible. After what they endured and what they went through, being falsely accused, nevertheless being punished as if they were criminals, they were praying, they were singing, they were praising God. This is quite the attitude to have. It's not pessimistic, it's optimistic because they believe something. They knew something. They had a history. They had an experience. They were walking with God. God is faithful to them, and they really believed that whatever happens, it's going to be all right. So what was wrong with them? Nothing. There was something right about them. They had the right attitude. They had the right attitude. Attitude is very important to have, and it shows up in what we say and what we do. Attitude. Can't you tell when someone likes you? Can't you tell when someone really likes you? Can't you tell when a dog likes you? Dogs are funny creatures. Horses are funny creatures. Both are very intelligent. Elephants are intelligent. But you talk about attitudes being seen in action and words. There's a married couple in their home. There's a dog between them. The command was, whatever the dog's name was, kiss, kiss. And the dog quickly goes toward the man. And she says, kiss, kiss. And the dog does this, turns away from the woman. It's funny. The attitude, the feelings of the animal is shown in action. Yeah, it's really telling. And I'm going to tell you tonight that attitude does show up even though it's invisible. It's an invisible entity, but it shows up in words and actions.
That's right.
Now, I'm not a policeman, I'm not a detective, but I got some common sense. And I've seen people in my life over the years, and it doesn't matter if it's recent or not, I've kind of, you know how you look at people, you think about something, you see something, and you think, uh-oh, he's going to do this. Uh-oh, he's about to blow up. Can you tell when someone's about to blow up? By gestures? I think Stan can tell, but I can tell you too. I'm not a policeman, but I can tell you this unofficially as a non-policeman. I can tell when someone does this. That fist clenches like that. The next that's going to happen is going to come right your way, a knuckle sandwich. Yeah. And when you're told to sit down and you do this, the guy does this, you know what's going to happen, a confrontation. So the attitude shows up. Guy gets pulled over by the police. Police says the typical routine. What's your age, what's your height, what's your knee like, those kind of questions. What's your favorite football team? Oh, really, you like the 49ers? Yeah, I'm from the Bay Area. You know what, you only get 25 miles to Flint. That's okay, I'll let you go this time. We are buds, we're family. We're 49er fans, that's okay. No, it doesn't go like that. They have to do what they got to do. And then if they say, you know, you need to step out of your car. Step out of your car. And the guy says, okay, you can tell from the words something's going on inside. He's got an attitude there. One time my mother-in-law got pulled over because she was speeding. She went, there's a place in her town, there's a little alley, drops Walgreens over here. She's going to walk, pick up some meds and stuff because she's a mess. And she pulls in, and she did something wrong, an illegal move. And the police follow her, pull over, and she's like, and the officer comes up from behind, you know, and she says, "Oh, officer, what did I do? What did I do, officer?" She said, "Well, you're not supposed to make a left turn over here." "Oh, I didn't know they left turn." Now, her actions and her words are telling you her attitude. "I didn't know what I was doing. I'm stupid." Had such a good lunch, and I was just thinking about it, and and he says, "Well, let me see your license now." Okay. Now, oh, Mrs. Campbell, okay. Oh, your husband's a veteran. I see you got a veteran state. Okay, well, thank you. Anyway, he said to her, very kindly, "You need to be careful because this place is a lot of accidents," and he gave her no ticket. He just gave her one to be careful. He did a lot of that. He was very gracious to her because she was not belligerent to him. She didn't put up a fight, put up a stink, say, "You're just after people with gray hair and over 80 years old. That's what you're after. Oh, grandma, that's what you're after. You're trying to fill us some quota, aren't you?" She didn't do anything like that. She didn't mouth off to him. She just batted her eyes like that. "Oh, officer, I didn't realize." Well, it wasn't a put on. It was just her. And the officer realized it was just a mistake. But to prevent her from doing it again, to save her life perhaps and others, he gave her a warning, let her go. Attitude always comes out. It always comes out. It always comes out. Can't see what it comes out. Philippians 1 says, "But I would ye should understand, brethren, that the things which happen unto me have fallen not rather unto the furtherance of the gospel." Now the attitude of Paul in prison and Silas was one of peace, one of relaxation, even though they were really hurting and it was not fair, wasn't right, totally unjust. But they had a relaxed attitude because they believed that these things that happened to them is unto the furtherance of the gospel. Therefore, they had every reason to be optimistic, not pessimistic, and not blame the Roman government, and not blame the guys who arrested us, not blame the people who accused us and called the city council on us and called the cops. They weren't like that at all. They had a good attitude for a good reason. Philippians 1:20, according to my earnest expectation and my hope that in nothing I shall be ashamed, but that with all boldness as always, so now also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether it be by life or by death. And so Paul did not always like, I think, what happened to him. Neither would we like what happened to him that would happen to us. We wouldn't like it either. But Paul still had a good attitude about things because he believed that God is over all. And he believed that what happened to him was for the furtherance of the gospel. A good attitude when you face enemies in this life. Now, attitude when it comes to confronting the future. Our attitude in confronting the future. Another scripture besides Philippians 1:12 and 1:12, which I just gave to you about, whether by life or by death, Christ should be magnified in our bodies, is Philippians, 1:12 again. 1:12 again. The things that happen unto me have fallen out rather unto the furtherance of the gospel. And then Philippians 1:20 again. So now also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether by life or by death. So here's the new verse to add to this list. John 6:38. John 6:38. For I came down from heaven, Jesus says, not to do mine own will, but the will of him that sent me. The attitude of the Christian facing the future has to be, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Personally or nationally or internationally, we don't know. Stock market, anything, we don't know. But the attitude is, we will do the will of God as we understand it presently. And have the attitude of Jesus Christ. When we face the future, I will do God's will closely, more than I have before. Romans 12:2 again will tell us this, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So the renewing of the mind would be thinking right so that our attitude will be right. Thinking right so our attitude will be right. Practically, our handling of situations in our life, challenges, storms, deserts, things like that. Things that happened to the Apostle Paul, things that happened to other saints in the Bible and the New Testament church. Handling it with the right attitude means to not be conformed to this world, not react as the world would react, but be transformed. Be different, think differently by renewing our mind. To be Christ-like in our attitude by knowing the Bible, what the Bible says. Now, there is a group of people, scientifically and medically called super tasters. Have you heard of them? Super tasters. Interesting, super tasters. A super taster is a person who experiences taste when they put food in their mouth more intensely than the average person. They just react to something on their tongue, the taste buds, and they have taste buds that specifically are called fungiform papillae. Fungiform papillae on the tongue. It helps, or causes, I don't know if it helps, but it causes them to detect flavors that others cannot. It's more intensified. It's more, wow, what was that all about? And so their eating experiences on certain foods becomes distasteful, kind of like a pun there, when they eat something because their taste buds react in a different way than average people. Something just, whoa, what was that? And sometimes it's difficult for them to eat. They say they can't help it because it's on their tongue, the taste buds. They can't change it. So they live their lives tasting something that's just magnified. Bitter things, and it's more bitter than average bitterness of things, certain kinds of vegetables and fruit. And so, what is that all about? Well, you don't have to be a super taster, spiritually speaking. You don't have to react to things in such an extreme way. Your attitude can be different than just reacting to something. Somebody points a finger at you, somebody accuses you, someone says this about you, things like that. And it's not true. but it seems to be true because others are saying it also, and you just react to it in anger, in defense. Don't be a super taster. You don't have to be. We have a choice about that. And the choices come from these verses, which helps us to have a good attitude about these matters and taking us away from being a super taster. 1 Peter 5:7 says, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. Well, if we know that God cares for us, then that must mean he'll take care of the situation, even though it seems very distasteful for the moment. Psalm 105, verse number 5. Remember his marvelous work that he hath done, his wonders, and the judgments of his mouth. Remember God when things are distasteful. And then Romans 12:21. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. So if we have the right attitude about things for the future, or even things in the present that is distasteful, we don't have to react to it like a person that has this problem of being a super taster. We can adjust our taste buds or adjust our attitude by remembering God, remembering the Bible, remembering his promises, remembering how faithful he was and how he will carry us through the present distasteful situation. 1 Thessalonians 5:18, in everything give thanks. That will help us to overcome the distastefulness of an experience. In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. And so we don't become evil to overcome evil. We overcome evil by doing good. That's the right attitude to have. So we don't get even because that's the world's way. We don't take vengeance. We let God work things out, and he does it a lot better. I have to laugh because we have a president that is being vindicated for a lot of things on a lot of fronts, and I don't know his motive, I don't know his heart, but I know one thing. I see from a distance that things have backfired. Those who dug a hole for him to fall in, they themselves fall into the same pit. I see that happening. And I don't know how God is working things out, but I see that in the secular world. I see it in government. I see how if you just have the right attitude, a good attitude about the life of a Christian, high, low, how deep, whatever happens, we just have to have a good attitude about things. Let's adjust our attitude. Let's not react as the world wants us to react. Let's not just raise the fist and punch somebody out as the solution for everything. You ever see these Karens on YouTube? You just go up to somebody's car as if they are the authority. You can't do that. You run on the window, run away. They lose it. They've got a real bad attitude. It's a real bad attitude. We can't live like that. We have to not be conformed to this world. Let's have a good attitude about a lot of things. This week, you might face a situation where it's going to just throw you off your horse. It'll just knock you for a loop. And it'll be such a shock and a surprise. And you may be praying about a situation that doesn't change. And you might be discouraged about something because it's not changing. It's not getting any better. But just remember what David did. Just remember what Caleb did. Just remember what Joshua did. Just remember what Paul and Silas did when they're through a distasteful situation. Don't react like the world. Don't react like the world. Everybody's sorry when they do something wrong, but they've done something wrong. Now, I'll close with this illustration. Jesus himself was lied about. He was accused of a lot of immorality, and he did defend himself, but did not go out of his way to defend himself. He just said a few words only, but he let his Father in heaven defend him, because he knew the Lord was watching over him, and even though for the time being it appeared he was in the wrong, he was not, and God is going to vindicate him. And so we have to have the same attitude. Attitude. Somebody said this, last thought, someone said this, your attitude attitude determines your altitude. A cute saying, but it's true. The altitude is not how high you go, how much you success, how much success. No. It's about how you will be successful as a Christian. That's how I take that. Your attitude determines how far you go in the Christian life, how deep your walk is with Christ is going to be like that if you have a good attitude. Okay? All right. If you have any questions, I'm sorry I can't answer them because my time is up. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for the Word of God, and thank you for the instruction and reminder and the help we get from it.